Okay, everyone good to go? Welcome to CocoaHeads. This is number 148, which is quite good and quite amazing. And we are back remote again for another month. But in good news here in Melbourne, the restrictions are slowly easing, and we hope that all around Australia we will soon see likewise. Now, this evening we are coming to you from Melbourne, but in the spirit of reconciliation, Melbourne CocoaHeads acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout all of Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, people here today, or joining us online. We have a large number of talks tonight. We have 4 in total with some amazing first-time speakers and also the amazing Joe, who is joining us once again. So the order for tonight will be Joe up first, giving us a talk about test-driven development in Swift, a practical introduction. And then we have Edwin talking about Off the Leash, an off-leash park finder and walk recording app. So for all of you dog owners out there, this is something to look forward to. Yep, should be amazing. Then we have Tim talking about his HD app. And to bring us to a close this evening, we have Brody talking about my journey from zero to Swift in 12 weeks. As always, all of the activities from Melbourne CocoaHeads are under our code of conduct. So that means we will be treating each other with respect. So there will be no discrimination, and we aim to provide an inclusive environment for everyone, regardless of gender identity and expression, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, religion or lack thereof, or technology choice. As always, we can't do much without our sponsors, so I'd like to thank our gold sponsor being Itty Bitty Apps, and also our silver sponsors being REA Group, Latitude Financial and Cognizant. With any luck, later this month, we will be able to have a drinks night in person. That will be on the last Tuesday, being the 27th of July. As always, keep check in Slack for all of the details around that so we can let you know what's happening. Now, here at CocoaHeads, we do things in conjunction with a whole heap of other people, particularly the Sydney CocoaHeads team, the people that run GDG Melbourne. And if you're interested in web development, then there is a good web meetup which people recommend as well. As you're joining the live stream, you already know one way of how to find us, but we also have a website being melbournecocoaheads.com. Please do jump on Slack and join the meetup channel during the live stream so that you're able to ask some questions and join in the fun. As always, keep up to date with everything going on via Twitter as well. Now in Slack, there are some really good channels to be a part of. Meetup, that's where we talk and ask questions about what happens during the live stream or the in-person meetup. Volunteers is our organisational channel. So if you want to help out and get involved, jump in there. Jobs is always a really good one as well. So if you're looking for work or looking to hire, jump in there. I did see about 4 or 5 jobs being posted recently. Saw ones from Redbubble, from Baloo, and a couple of others come up. So please do jump in there if you're looking for work or looking to hire. Now, it's really great that we've got 3 first-time speakers joining us tonight, but we are always looking for more. So if you want to give a talk, then jump on the speakers channel. And there is also mentoring available. So if you are feeling that you don't have the expertise, just speak up. We're happy to help everyone out with giving a talk. Now, apps get shipped all the time, so do jump in Slack and tell us what you have shipped, and just tell us how great an app it is, and yeah, we will test it out. Now, our first talk coming up is from Joe, which is about test-driven development in Swift, a practical introduction. Now, Joe is writing a book, which I'm sure he will plug several times during his talk. Having worked with Joe in the past, he has a wealth of knowledge about testing, and it is great that he is sharing it with more and more people. So over to you, Joe.
Hello, everyone. Joe. It is a pleasure to be with you tonight and to introduce myself as Joe and not Gio, which is how you would read my name, in an English-speaking country, because most people that I work with just read my name and so always end up calling me Gio. And I sort of gave up trying to explain that, it's Joe, which is short for Giovanni. But here I am always among friends, and so you all know me very well, and you call me Joe, which is appreciated and refreshing. Anyway, Matt has done a very kind introduction. Thank you, Matt. I have written a book, and actually I just checked randomly today, and it is already available for purchase. The publisher didn't tell me that. It's a surprise, so I didn't have time to update the website accordingly. But yeah, the book is out, and if you'd like the starter we talk about tonight, maybe consider checking it out. The book is about test-driven development in Swift, and the thing that makes it unique is, as far as I know, the only one available right now that talks about Swift UI and Combine. And I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I kind of shot myself in the foot there because I had a lot of stuff ready for UIKit, and then I went off with Swift UI, and I had to research and learn a bunch of new things. But that's very fun. So, yep. Test-driven development suite, a practical introduction. I won't try to summarize the book in a talk or give examples from the book. I want to take a different approach and just look at a simple example that I won't be talking about any theory. We'll just start writing code. All right, let me just switch back to from Chrome to Xcode. Here we go. So here we have our like a slightly more advanced version of the Hello World app that Xcode generates for us, in which if we pass the content view username is going to say hello username, otherwise is just going to say hello world. And one thing about testing, a common hurdle for people to start writing tests is that it is hard to write tests for existing code, and sometimes it can almost feel like you are wasting time because, well, this code has already been written, already works, so why should I spend my time writing tests for it? And I say, yeah, all right. If you are not sure where to start, just wait until you need to write some new code or until you need to make a change to existing code, because even the hardest code that is not written with testability in mind, you can always implement that change in isolation, test it very well, and then integrate it. And so this is what we're going to be doing tonight. We are in Australia here. We don't say hello world, we say good day mate. And so we're going to try and change this greetings app to say good day mate or good day whatever user it's being provided to it. So before starting with that, I want to get your attention to something, which is that to verify this behavior, because we're using SwiftUI, and SwiftUI is notoriously hard to write unit tests for, here we are just relying on the preview. So there are two preview windows because the behavior has twofold, if there's a user and if there isn't. And we need to use our eyes. We need to look at the screen and like maybe zoom in and zoom out to check the code and add as many combination of the inputs as we need to make sure that they're all displayed properly. And the problem with our eyes is that our biological hardware is not as fast and reliable as the one of the computer. So testing code just manually like this is not the most effective way to go about it. So you want to change and have this good day mate, and we want to do it using the using test-driven development. What does this even mean? Well, test-driven development is about starting with a test. So the first thing that we're going to do is going to be add a test. Okay, so here we have I created a new XCTest case file, and I'm starting with a test list. The test list is an enumeration of all the different test cases that you think you might need to properly test the behavior of the code that you're writing. And writing the test list itself, instead of just jumping into writing one test, is a great idea because it forces you to come to terms with all the different options, all the different things that your code needs to do, and you have this time to face the dragon and try to understand deeply what you're trying to build. Now, this test list is simple because our example is simple, but still there's two choices. So which one do we start with? Well, I like to start with the one that I can get done the fastest, with the one that seems the simplest to me. And in this case, it would be the one where there's no user, because I can just say, hey, good day, mate, without doing any string interpolation. So let's write the test. Here it is. Did you see how fast I can type? So what is a test? An automated test, a unit test that we can write in Xcode. It is nothing more than just code that calls other code. In this case, we write some code that calls this new function that is going to encapsulate all our behavior, and then we check what it does. Now, to get started, you should you can just write the function signature. How you think your function should look like, and just do the simplest thing that makes the code compile. You could even do like a fatal error here to silence the compiler if you don't know what to put, but then your tests would fail. So I just try to return, in this case, is a string, so just an empty string. A tip to organize your test is to follow the arrange, act, assert structure. So the first phase is the arrange phase, in which you can prepare the input or inputs for your system under test. The second one is the act phase, in which you produce the output that you're then gonna check. And so you act on the system under test, in this case, this function, to generate the output. And finally, there is the assert phase, in which you check that the output matches what you're expecting it to be. If we run this test, what's going to happen? Well, this is something useful to do. Before running your test, you should sort of like have this conversation with yourself, check, hey, what do I expect the test to do? This way, if the test don't do what you expect them to do, you can take a step back and try to understand why your mental representation of the software didn't match reality. Did you make a mistake in writing the test? Did you make a mistake in writing the implementation? Who knows? But it's good to have this mental check. So I expect this test to fail because I just coded an empty string as the return value. We can run the test with the Command U keyboard shortcut and wait for Xcode to build for us. And run the test. This is taking a very long time. Of course, this is, so I've done a few live coding talks, and there's always something that goes wrong at some point. Oh, here it is. So I learned not to try and type the code because I always forget how to type, but apparently I need to find a way to run the test without bypassing through the simulator. Anyway, the test failed, and how can we make it pass? Again, what is the simplest, the fastest thing that we can do to make it pass, where we can just return what the test expects in order to pass. And we can do it like this. So yeah, the test wants good day mate to pass, and we just return good day mate from this function. Now, while the test runs, I'll tell you a bit more about this technique. This technique is called fake it, or fake it till you make it, and is a great way to get started when you don't know how to implement some code. You just return the value that is going to make the test pass, just to establish this green baseline. What just happened is that we went from the test not passing, the diamond in Xcode being red, which we can call the red state, to the green state. And in test-driven development is all a game of going between the different stages, in this case, red to green, in the smallest step possible. Okay, so now we have two choices. One is we can work on this implementation to make it real, or we can move on to the next test. I like to move on to the next test because the next test is gonna force us to write the implementation anyway. But whichever works for you, you can choose. So in the next test, we'll check that if we pass a user, that value gets interpolated in the string. So if we say greetings with username Ada, we expect good day Ada to return. Now, as you can see, this test I wrote as a one-liner, and yeah, arrange, act, assert is a great way to structure your test, but sometimes especially if you are already a bit familiar with the code base and with testing, having them in a one-liner is concise enough that helps readability more than having it's split in different lines. So yeah, I don't mind the one-liner approach, but again, I'm trying to show you the two different ways, and you pick the one that you prefer. Now again, if we run this test, what is going to happen? Well, I'm expecting it to fail because the function is returning an hard-coded value. And in fact, it did fail. So now I want to go, I'm back in the red state. I have a red test, and I want to go to the green state with the simplest code that I can write, the first code that comes to mind, the smallest step possible. And in this case is just a boring if let name, use the name, otherwise return this getDayMate value. Let's run the test. Do I expect them to pass? Yes. And they passed. Okay, this is good. We're back in the green state, and we can take a deep breath, pat on the back. Right now, the software is doing what it is supposed to be doing. So far we've been going back and forth between the red and the green state. There is an extra state that we can move ourselves into, and it's called the refactoring state. And this is really the beauty that I find of test-driven development, why I like working this way, because it allows me to move in these small steps and do one thing at a time. So right now, our only focus was making the test pass, which means making the code work without worrying too much about how the code looks like. And now that we know that the code works, because we have the test that validates that for us, we can think about how the code looks like and remove any duplication, make it fit with the standards of our code base, play around with it. And we can do it with confidence because we have the test that we have already written and that we know that they validate the behavior to help us. So something that we can do is there's a bit of duplication that getDay is duplicated. The code is a bit dense. You just play around with it and change it, do something fancy, because optional has this map method. So if the optional has a value, use it. Otherwise, fall back to mate. And look, let's make a mistake here on purpose to verify whether or not we did it properly. And the test failed because I made a mistake during my refactor. And now if I fix it, the test should pass. All right. So now we have this working implementation, and the next step is to integrate it back into the original code, this SwiftUI content view. Here we go. So a few things to notice. This is just the cache. Yeah. A few things to notice. Again, this is already showing us what I think is a drawback of relying too much on previews to implement your SwiftUI code, which is that previews are a bit clunky. Every time you do some big change to the view itself, Xcode stops regenerating it because the code is not compiling, and so it's just wasting time. So now one of our previews disappeared from here, but the screen is still showing it because it's been paused. So you kind of need to go there and click resume and wait for it to do its job. And something that I want to point out that is kind of written in that blob of text in the comments is now that all the logic is outside of SwiftUI, we don't really need to have those two previews to check the different behaviors of that greeting function because we have the unit test that does it for us. And so the preview itself really becomes something that we can use only to focus on how the code, the view looks like. And this, my friends, is the big secret behind writing unit tests and using test-driven development with SwiftUI, which is, in a sense, to test the SwiftUI applications, don't test SwiftUI. Move all the logic away from the SwiftUI layer and test that instead. When we were back in the UI kit world, we were dealing with stateful objects. So we could instantiate them, inspect them, and call methods on them. But in SwiftUI, not only what we get out of that body property is the opaque view that if we look into it, we get this SwiftUI specific representation of what we've written, but the framework itself just works in a different way. In SwiftUI, views are a function of state, not a sequence of event. So if we play by the SwiftUI rules and provide the same state to a SwiftUI view, we can be confident that it is going to render in the same way because the function is the same. The framework guarantees this for us. And it took me a while to grok it, but this is, I found it liberating. There's a lot of tests that I don't feel like I need to write anymore because I can trust that the SwiftUI framework will handle all that stuff for me. How am I doing at time? I'll just show you one other thing because we have a very good lineup tonight and I don't want to take too much time for the other speakers. So you might have noticed all right. Here we are back online. That was fun, and for once it wasn't my fault stopping, crashing some part of my gear or anything else. So Rob told me I might have lost a minute or so of what I was saying. I'll just go over that very quickly. SwiftUI is amazing, and if you play by the SwiftUI rules and write your code in such a way that the view is just a declaration, it takes some state, reads it, and renders it, you don't really need to worry about writing unit tests for the view itself because all the logic that generates the data that the view shows is outside of it, and you can write unit tests for that. Then I just called attention to the fact that if we pass a username that is an empty string, my preview failed again. So let's start it again. We're gonna get back "good day!" exclamation mark, which doesn't make any sense. Is a bug, and test-driven development is pretty cool for bug fixing as well, because you can write a test that reproduces the condition in which the bug occurs and have the expectation for the correct behavior, and the test is going to fail because there's a bug. Then the bug fixing is nothing more than just applying the same test-driven development workflow, red, green, refactor, to update your code in such a way that the test and all the other one pass. So what's the first step here? It is to write a test for this scenario. And here it is, test greetings with empty string says, "good day, mate." We pass an empty string and we expect to get back "good day, mate," but I know that right now the test is going to fail because there's this bug in the implementation, and it failed. So how do we fix the bug? Again, we are in the red state and we want to go to the green state. Write the first code that comes to mind to get there as fast as possible, and then we can worry about making the code good. All right, so now added a bit of a check to see if the string is empty, and if it's empty, fall back to that to mate, otherwise just the value. And if I've done my job correctly, this test is now going to pass. And yeah, it worked, so we can consider the bug fixed. We were in the red state, we went back to the green state, and now we can take a breather, pat on the back, maybe commit the bug fix, and then see, have we got time for some refactor? Can we make the code better? And yes, we can. That code before wasn't that readable, so we can extract the logic to decide whether to use mate or not into his own little private function. And this also removes the duplication. We wrote mate only once, so that if we want to change it to something else, like a matey or something, we change the code only once. That's test-driven development in a nutshell. We write the test first so that the test can help us shape the implementation of the code, and we can get fast-paced feedback on the changes that we're making. In the book, I use the name partition problem and solve sequentially. So you take even whatever thing you want to do, you can decompose it in little pieces, little slices of behavior that you can write a unit test for, and start with one, the one that seems easier. And in that context as well, you partition the problem and solve sequentially. First, you try to write the test. Then you think about making the test pass with whatever code comes out. And once you have the test passing, you can, with confidence, rework your implementation and make it better, remove duplication, remove hard-coded values. If this sounds interesting, you should check out my book, which, as I discovered by accident, is already available on Amazon and on the press website. If you buy it and you want to leave a review, that would be very much appreciated. If you have any comment, get in touch with me. You can find me at MokaGio on Twitter, MokaGio, or on, I think I am just Gio, Gio on the Melbourne CocoaHeads Slack. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the performance. Back to you, Matt.
As always, an amazing talk, Joe. Lots to be learned, lots to take in. If you've got any questions for Joe, please do jump in the Meetup channel on Slack and ask away. As mentioned many times, he has a book, and I know I will be going off to order it, and I hope many others do as well. So next up, we have Edwin talking about Off the Leash, an Off the Leash Parkfinder and walk recording app. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I know others, when they heard the talk title, were like, yes, this is exactly the type of app that they want. So yeah, over to you, Edwin.
Cool.
Hi guys, first of all, thank you for having me here today, and special thank you to Edward Greenaway and Melbourne CocoaHeads for giving me the opportunity to present here. My name is Edwin, a current Masters of IT student specializing in software development at Swinburne. So, and with that, as with Tim and Brody, who will speak later, I took the Creating Data-Driven Mobile Applications subject, of which Edward Greenaway was my tutor. And today I will talk about my app that I've made for the subject, which is called Off the Leash. My application is technically a collation of everything learned in this subject, and it's also an extension of my interests and my responses to personal problems I've encountered. So before we continue on about the app, I'll just give a quick brief background on who I am. I originally graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Sound Design back in 2017, and currently work as an audiovisual technician and sound designer for theatre and events. But I eventually hope to move into the world of software engineering when I graduate, with a focus of Internet of Things and mobile development. So yes, I'm very much a baby programmer, only starting to learn about programming last year. So please be kind to me and my app. So basically, what does Off the Leash do? Basically, it displays the closest off-leash park to you. It's currently less limited to Dandenong area, and then allows you to also record your dog walks at wherever you are. In the recording feature, you can also set goals for each walk, and the app will let you know if you met the goal. And the app then saves this recorded walk data, which is then displayed on a history page. So just very quickly in finer detail, you can see the Find a Park feature over here that displays the closest off-leash parks via annotations on the map and also in a table view. And on the table view, it also shows like the distance of each park relative to your location. There you can also select, sorry, the video stopped. There you can also select the park from the table view, and the map will just focus in on it, basically. And next, you can see a live walk being recorded. And then it basically records like various like types of data here, and also draws a polyline as the walk is being recorded. And it also indicates whether a goal has been met as well. And over here, you can see my history page being used, which basically shows all recorded walk data according to the date, and as well as the route taken for the currently selected walk. And lastly, my simple goals page, which I might have mentioned, basically allows you to set goals per walk. So with that, I'm just going to quickly go through a high-level overview of some frameworks and tools and classes that I've used to make this app. For the off-leash data, I currently use console-collated datasets from data.gov.au, retrieving them in the GeoJSON format, though I might eventually move to maintain and create my own database to solve various problems with the JSON formatting between each console, as they do vary despite Data Victoria setting a standard to follow, thus making it hard to integrate some of the datasets from other consoles into the app. And even using things like coding keys here can't really solve that problem due to the datasets more or less not having the same information or same data at all. And then to process all this GeoJSON data, I use the MKGeoJSON decoder to decode the GeoJSON formatted console datasets into an array of custom objects that gets used throughout the app. And for saving and retrieving the recorded walk data and eventually user authentication, I'm currently using Firebase's Firestore database, which is a document-based database. This is especially so because the Firestore offers a data type called geodata, which allows me to more or less save coordinates much more easily. For any feature that currently shows a map, I use MapKit, though I would eventually like to migrate some of these features, such as the history page, to use the MKMap snapshotter image instead of MapKit to more or less improve the performance and efficiency of the app. And for location data, such as user location, distance traveled, attitude data, which actually gets used for the cumulative gain calculations, I use the usual CL location classes, and CM pedometer data was used to track the steps of the user during a walk. And lastly, time was used to time the duration of the recorded walk, as well to sorry about that. Sorry. Time was used to time the duration of the recorded walk, as well as to incrementally update the UI when a walk is being recorded, basically. And lastly, of course, table views was used to list out the data, and a tab bar was used for the navigation. So yeah, that's a very basic high-level overview of some things I use to create the app. Some possible improvements to be made on top of what I've already mentioned previously include authentication, as I mentioned, to prevent the users from just accessing each other's data, and getting my elevation gain calculations a bit more accurate, and also maybe even implementing a photo capture feature eventually. This is based on some feedback I received on the app, and also improving the UI, such as a slide up card in place of the table views in my history and find a park page, and also making the UI a bit more pretty and more accessible in general. Once all that is done, I'll perhaps try and put it up in the App Store and see what happens, really. So yeah, that's about it. And thank you very much. I'll hand it back to Matt.
Thanks, Edwin. That was an amazing talk. Hearing about how you've gone from theatre work through to writing apps is amazing. And also dealing with all of the fun that is GeoJSON and MapKit and Firebase and even MK Map Snapshotter. So much fun working with those frameworks. I'm sure you will have many, many talks to come from that. So next up, we have Tim, who is talking about his HD app. Now, there might be a bit of mystery. Is this high definition? Is this high distinction? I do not know. So I am looking forward to finding out. Over to you, Tim.
Alright, so good evening, everyone. This is Tim from Swinburne Uni, which is graduating at the end of this year, majoring in computer science. I'm here to introduce my journey of building an high distinction app for my unit, which is a local recipe keeper and generator. So, to be straightforward, my focus tonight is my recipe application, which is inspired by my cooking experience during holidays and my spare time. So I do watch a lot of food cooking videos from a variety of sites on my own, and I do follow some of them to make dishes I would actually have. However, I couldn't find a good place to keep them, especially when my brain storage is very limited, I would say. And near the end of the unit, the idea came out, which is the application I'm demonstrating here. So As shown, the application has a main page to keep the list of the recipes with a nicely cropped thumbnail image indicating what the dish is and a few details about it. Sorry, one sec. And we also have a create button at the top right corner for you to create a new recipe, which we'll talk about that later. And you can click into them to view the details of how the dish can be made and share it with your friends if they would be like it. After you have attempted, you can give it a rating and a short comment. Then it will be kept in the history page. Besides, a cooking timer is provided to assist you with cooking, so there's no need to switch to other applications during cooking. And finally, a history page is provided to inform you that dishes you have made before, providing ideas on how you can improve that recipe or the way you cook. And here in this page, you can schedule a new time on calendar if you want to cook that dish once again someday. And the part I've been put the most effort on would be the recipe generating. Well, most of the time I've been spent with dealing with the buttons within the custom cells and finding a comfortable way of entering things. Yeah, I still find that the input of ingredients and steps are kind of challenging for a smartphone keyboard. So Edward has been providing some ideas and suggestions to me. There are quite a lot of existing relevant information that can be used as input, which includes recipe websites, magazines, supermarket flyers, backup food package, etc. And by implementing text for camera introduced by WWDC21, ingredients and even steps could be handled directly by camera. Unfortunately, the iOS simulator does not cooperate here, so we are simulating the process. That's playing correctly. Here, we simulate the situation that we get the ingredient from a random source. When we get the text from camera, we will determine the delimiter to separate them properly as input. And for my application, there are quite a lot of things to improve in the future. As mentioned, implementing camera input as an approach of entering ingredients and steps. Cooking tools need to be implemented as well, such as multiple timers and unit converting to help cooking. We can even have some feature detecting the time within the steps and will automatically start timer accordingly for you. And more interaction with ingredients will be desired. We can say connect them to nearby available supermarket to check if there are stocks left. All right, at the end, I would appreciate Swinburne staff and especially my tutor Edward for answering tons of questions from me during the unit, because I'm basically emailing him every single second I could. Also, thanks CocoaHeads for giving the opportunity for me to talk in here. And also, thank you all for your time tonight. And I'll go back to Matt.
Thanks, Tim. A high distinction is definitely worthy of much praise. So well done on producing an app of such great caliber. We all know that when cooking food, stuff like multiple timers, getting all of the recipes, everything like that is a lot of work. So really well done on producing that app. And I hope that your studies go really well from here on, as well as Edwin and Brody, who are likewise Swinburne students. Great to have you all here and presenting some of your work and your experience. It's also good to see in the meetup that there are other Swinburne students around as well. I know I spent time at Swinburne many years ago as well, so it's great to see a lot of really good and talented developers come out of the courses there. So next up, we have Brody talking about my journey from zero to Swift in 12 weeks. Over to you, Brody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my sections. So now I'm going to share you guys my whole journey from zero to Swift within 12 weeks. Well, let's see what I will cover tonight. So tonight I will cover 6 sections, including who I am, why to Swift, how 12 weeks journey look like, Swift UI and my SG project, my challenge and motivations, and then finally conclusion. Every story has its own background. So before we start, let me introduce a bit about myself. As you know, I'm Brody, and I'm a final year student in Sweden University of Technology. I'm studying Bachelor of Computer Science. My major is software development. Beside my study, I'm currently working as the e-commerce developer, as well as the front-end web developer in Melbourne. If you see me on the street with a camera, well, please feel free to come and say hi, and maybe just ask for a couple of photos. I am a photographer as well. All decisions making is a value clarifying exercise. Let me share the reason why I chose Swift as my next goal. As you know, I have a bit complicated background as half technical person, as a developer, and half artist as a photographer. One of my key value is user experience. We all know that Apple, they do an amazing job when it's come to UI and UX designs because they always pay attention to details. All products in and out refer to hardware and have been polished the way it will be presented to the users. And it was really exciting to me by the time I found out that my Swinburne University offered an elective course to teach me how to develop an iOS app by myself. Come on, I can't just ignore it. So I ended up to enroll this unit, which called Creating Data-Driven Mobile Applications. In this unit, this is my honor to have Mr. Edward Greenaway as my tutor. Starting from zero knowledge with Swift, let me show you what I have learned for 12 weeks. So within the first 8 weeks, it's a complete fresh journey for me from starting with a little basic Swift programming, then slowly starting building my first app with a UI and things getting more and more complicated. After week 8, I have built around 3 simple iOS apps as a part of learning process. Those apps play a significant role to help me practice with Swift programming language, as well as demonstrating the ability to work with data, including both local data and online data, via the third-party API. As you can see here, up to this stage, my portfolio includes 3 apps, which are Quiz app, Athlete Ranking app, Aussie Holiday app. Without further ado, let me show you each of them and what I have learned from them. Well, let's start with quiz app a very first app with a simple UI that I have done. This is built using the MVC design pattern. Its UI has been constructed using storyboard like interface builder. This was a really good starting point for me at this stage to spend some time, practice, and demonstrate the basic iOS app development. I have also learned how to write the unit tests as well as UI testing to get familiar on how to take the control and debug my own app. Moreover, I have played around with iOS app lifecycle later to get more idea on how the iOS app will be run into several stages. Move on to the next one with the athlete ranking app. This is another simple app which requires me to work with local data via the JSON format. Again, the UI is also built using the storyboard like interface builder. In this particular app, I have started to work with UI table view, UI segmented control. While working with iOS development, I'm pretty sure UI table view is a common element which appears frequently in almost iOS apps. Initially, I started to follow the storyboard approach to construct the custom layout for my UI table view cell. But later on, I find out there's another approach which is much better to implement the custom layout for UI table view cell, which is XIP. You may ask like why XIP but not storyboard? So based on my research, just me, XIP is literally a gem to help us build a UI layout for any like reusable custom table cell. Compared to storyboard, actually they result the same thing. However, XIP file is a better approach when it's come to construct a complex UIs because it has a focus view, just one thing, while storyboard is used to handle many things. If XIP is used for a custom reusable view, and then in the other hand, storyboard is mainly using for like navigations and layout. Let's think the bigger pictures. Using XIP is also an effective approach to break down the complexity of the view, the code structures, to visually build a complex UI app at ease, but easily organize, manage the source code for any maintenance job later. We all know the organized code is always painless to debug and reduce any potential bug in the long run. With this app, I learned how to work with local data via the format. Basically, I have learned how to read the data from the existing JSON, then I'll decode it and store the data into the realms data library. Additionally, I did practice to refactor my code using higher order functions such as filter, sorted. Thanks to Mr. Edward to show me this trick. It's made my code like a lot shorter after adopting it. The next one will be Aussie Holiday app. It's still another simple app, which is built using like storyboard approach. Compared to the previous one, this app requires me to work with online database via the third-party API rather than the local database. So I have learned how to apply to get the access for the API key, how to read the API documentations, how to debug the API requests using the Postman applications. It's really handy for me. And yeah, that's what I have learned and achieved after the first 8 weeks to experience with Swift. In the next 4 weeks, it's my challenge to build a really complicated UI iOS applications at the high distinction level. So due to the time limitations, my university learning material hasn't covered Swift UI. However, I can't just like give it up, seeing I know how amazing Swift UI is. So I decided to take the challenge to self-study Swift UI and then develop a prototype of an iOS app using SwiftUI within 4 weeks left. The app I'm going to build, the app I was going to build is called Travel Ramble. The entire UI has been constructed using the combinations of StroView, Z-Stack, V-Stack, H-Stack. Moreover, it has been implemented with MapKit, Geometry Reader, Observable Object, Lazy V Grip, Navigation Lazy View, and a third party, the external library Kingfishers to caching the images. The data is accessible via a self-deployed API, which is hosted on the Heroku service provider. Does this sound promising to you? Really? Well, introducing Travel Ramble. Plan your trip from here and share us what you have experienced. It's a travel discover app which allows users to browse where to go, where to eat, what to do from at, sport, live events, or even book the accommodations upfront for your trip. Let me show you how it works. They are really informative. So on the media access in host from like GitHub, public repository. Okay, so I will show you what happened in the back of the app. So that's the initial concept that I have worked with my high distinctions applications. This is the UI mockup that I have done. And then based on the initial UI mockup, I construct the final layout for this. Like completely were written using like 100% Swift UI. And here is the class diagram. It's like I'm following the MVC design pattern. So yeah, that's just like the normal common thing for all the developer. Good practice. And as I mentioned, they have like some like structures. And if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you, right? This is my belief. So I will show you how I deal with the challenge and get some motivations to accept it. So Swift UI is one of the biggest challenges that I have taken because like with the time limitations. So the challenge so far is I have spent like almost like 8 weeks out of 12 weeks to work with Swift UI, like interface builder. And from what I can see, this is the easy approach to build simple UI applications, but it has some limitations when it comes to develop complex UI applications. I don't say like it can't do, but like it's really like really hard to using the storyboard like interface builder to construct a complex UI. And in the other hand, Swift UI is really amazing, and that seems to be like reason enough for me. It's reason enough for me to keep my motivation to self-learn Swift UI, because like writing the code with Swift UI is extremely fast and productive. It have the ability to construct complex UIs. With Swift UI, the code can be organized and refactored easily using soft views. So 12 weeks is not too long and not too short to give me an unforgettable journey with Swift. Now it's time to sum up. Regarding the Swift UI, from my perspective, it can be learned quickly if we have some experience with like CSS, because my background is from like web development. So I can see in particular practicing with the Flexbox from CSS is really good approach for me to quickly adopt with Swift UI and quickly get familiar on how to use the ultimate combinations of Z stack, hashtag, V stack to build a lot of like complex UI designs. Compared to the interface builder like storyboard approach, Swift UI facilitate a lot when it comes to construct complex UIs. And trust me, I'm totally like start from zero knowledge. I don't have much experience, even like just 4 weeks. But Swift UI is really easy for the beginner like myself. And yeah, it seems to be that's all for today. I have an amazing journey for myself with Swift, and I hope you will enjoy tonight's show as well. I just give a quote here. So that's from Steve Jobs, and because from my perspective, I'm admire him, the way he always focus on presentations, on like customer experience, and yeah. Thank you for all of your attentions. Back to you, Matt.
Many thanks for that one, Brody. Fantastic slides, fantastic keynote presentation. Really, really good to see the quality of your work, and even in the screenshot, seeing your earlier apps and how they progressed through to your later work in SwiftUI, which is an amazing user experience. If you get a chance to meet Brody, ask him about his photography work. That's really amazing. At the last drinks night, I had the chance to see a fair bit of that, as well as see his travel app as well in person. So yeah, definitely an amazing presentation, and it was really great to hear your journey and your story. Lots of amazing talent coming out of Swinburne at the moment. A lot of us regulars have a big challenge to up our game now and try and meet some of the presentation quality that has been put out this evening. So thanks heaps to all our speakers for this evening. Thanks to you all for joining us as well. It has been a great evening, great talks, lots of really, really good discussion in Slack in the Meetup channel. If you hang around in Slack, you will see a link to a drinks meetup that we will have on Zoom. As always, our other activities for the month will be a drinks night at the end of the month on the last Tuesday. So details will appear in Slack about that one in the drinks night channel. If you are a morning person instead of an evening person and prefer coffee instead of beer, or even tea instead of coffee or beer, then we will be getting the breakfast meetup, which will happen once a month, going again at some time soon. So jump in the breakfast channel for that one. Obviously, with all things at the moment, it will be COVID permitting, but with offices opening back up and people coming back into the city, it'll be another chance to hang out and get to know other people. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Thanks to all of our presenters, to Joe, to Edwin, to Tim and Brody. Thanks to Ed from Swinburne for organising some amazing talks for us this evening. Yeah, and we will see you around next month and at one of our other meetups. Bye for now.